the strange silence before the storming, the cold darkness of space. Far from the warm light of any sun, Commander Zyrak stood on the bridge of his warship. The screens around him glowed with maps of the Sol system, showing a small blue planet. At its heart, this planet was called Earth. It looked calm, peaceful, almost harmless. But the stories about it were anything but peaceful. For years, whispers had spread through the galaxy. Every fleet that had attacked Earth had vanished. No wreckage was ever found, no survivors ever returned. Some said the humans had weapons that could erase entire fleets in seconds. Others said the humans were simply lucky. But the most frightening rumors claimed that humans hunted their enemies instead of just fighting them. Zyrak didn't believe in ghost stories. He had fought in many wars and won them all. But even he could not ignore the missing fleets. The Seleth High Council had ordered him to lead an invasion of Earth. They claimed it would be easy. Humans were young, weak, and unprepared for real war. Sarek was not so sure. He leaned over the map. Earth was quiet to quiet. There were no defense platforms. No large fleets in orbit. It was unusual. Any advanced world would have dozens of ships ready. But here, space was empty. "Commander," said First Officer Relka, her voice low, "I do not like this silence. It feels wrong." Zyrak kept his eyes on the screen. "I agree," he said, "but silence is not danger. We will proceed. Stay alert." The fleet moved closer. Passing the orbits of Mars and the asteroid belt, they expected to see patrol ships or warning beacons. Instead, there was nothing. The scanner showed only empty space. No movement, no radio signals. The planet below spun quietly in the black void. The crew began to relax. Some even laughed. Perhaps Earth was not as dangerous as the story said. Perhaps the missing fleets had simply gotten lost. But deep inside, Zyrak felt the same unease as Relka. The silence was not the safety of peace, it was the silence of a predator waiting to strike. A young communications officer spoke up. "Commander, we have intercepted some signals from the surface. They are strange." Zyrak turned. "Strange? How?" "They are not military codes, sir. They are music, human voices, laughter, and something else. We cannot understand all of it." Zyrak frowned. Why would a world under threat be broadcasting such things into space? It was almost as if they wanted to show they were not afraid. He ordered the fleet to hold position. Every sensor was pointed toward Earth. Still, no warships appeared. No weapons locked onto them. It was as if the humans didn't care that an alien armada had entered their skies. Hours passed. The quiet was heavy. The crew moved slower, spoke softer, as if afraid of breaking it. Relka approached Zyrak again. "Sir, permission to send scouts ahead. I want to know what's hiding down." "There," Zyrak nodded. Two small scout ships broke away from the main fleet and descended toward the blue planet. The first minutes of their journey were normal. Then the scouts passed into the shadow of the moon. At that exact moment, both ships vanished from the fleets. Sensors, no explosion, no distress call, just gone. The bridge filled with tense voices as officers tried to re-establish contact. Zyrak ordered the long-range cameras to search the area. When the image came through, everyone fell silent. The two scout ships were drifting in space. Their lights were out, their engines cold. No signs of life aboard. It was as if something had taken their crews away without damaging the ships at all. Relka whispered, "It has begun." Zyrak clenched his jaw. The silence had been waiting for them. Now, it had started to move. He gave the order for all ships to raise shields and arm weapons. But deep down, he knew the truth. They had already stepped into whatever trap Earth had prepared. And the humans were not in a hurry to reveal it outside the bridge windows. The blue planet continued to turn slowly. Its oceans sparkled under the sunlight. Its clouds drifted lazily across continents. It looked so beautiful, so calm. Yet Zyrak felt as if the planet itself was watching him, waiting for him to make the next move. The silence pressed against the walls of his ship, and somewhere inside that silence, death was hiding. The two dead scout ships drifted in the shadow of the moon, their blackened windows staring back at the Zalith fleet like empty eyes. Commander Zyrak stood frozen, his hands resting on the rail before the main view screen. His officers waited for orders, but the commander said nothing for a long moment. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm but heavy. "Bring them in." A recovery ship was sent, its engines burning softly against the darkness. The crew worked in silence as they secured the lifeless scouts and pulled them into the docking bay. Zyrak, Relka, and two armored guards entered the bay to see them for themselves. The air was cold here, too cold. When the scout ship doors were forced open, a wave of still, stale air spilled out inside. The crew sat in their seats, eyes wide, open mouths frozen in mid-scream. Not a single drop of blood, not a single wound. It was as if their lives had been stolen without touching their bodies. Commander Relka said quietly, "I think we should turn back." Zyrak did not answer. The High Council would never forgive him for retreating without firing a shot. Besides, the humans had just given him something he could not ignore: fear. Not his own, but the fear they wanted him to feel. He returned to the bridge and gave the order to send a second wave. This time, they would not send living crews. Only unmanned drones, fast, heavily shielded, and armed with scanning equipment. The drones flew low toward Earth, their sensors cutting through the atmosphere. For a moment, the screens filled with beautiful images: clouds, oceans, forests, cities. The cities seemed active, full of human life. But then, one by one, the drones blinked out of existence. No explosion, no signal loss, they simply stopped existing. "Impossible," muttered the chief engineer. "Nothing can erase a drone signal that cleanly." Relka looked at the commander, her voice firm. "This is not defense, sir. This is a warning." Zyrak clenched his fists. Warnings were for those who could be intimidated. He was not one of them. He ordered the forward assault ship, the Iron Talon, to advance into low orbit. It was one of the most powerful destroyers in the Zalith Navy. Its cannons could split an asteroid in half. Its shields could survive hours of direct bombardment. If humans thought they could scare the Zalith with tricks, they were wrong. The Iron Talon descended slowly, scanning for targets. Suddenly, the crew saw something on the sensor's massive structures in orbit around Earth. They looked old, their surfaces scarred and covered with strange panels. No visible weapons, no active engines. The Iron Talon's captain laughed. "Empty relics, Commander. Perhaps the humans left them here as decoration." The captain ordered the main cannon to fire, but the moment the weapon charged, every system on the Iron Talon flickered, lights dimmed, controls froze, and the engines roared without command. Alarms screamed through the ship. The captain tried to give orders, but his voice was drowned out by static. Then, just as suddenly, the noise stopped. The bridge crew sat in silence, staring at the dead screens outside. The massive orbital structures still floated quietly, and the Iron Talon, one of the proudest warships of the Zalith Empire, was now drifting like a powerless toy from the fleet's bridge. Zyrak watched in disbelief. "Get them out of there," he ordered. But before the recovery ships could move, something strange happened. The Iron Talon began to turn slowly, deliberately, not under its own power. It was being rotated as if by an invisible hand. Then it was pushed, thrown away. From Earth, the massive destroyer spun wildly into the void, disappearing into the black. There was no explosion, no sign of weapons fire. It was as if the humans had simply decided the ship no longer belonged there. Relka stepped closer to Zyrak. "Sir, this is not a normal enemy. They have not fired a single shot. And yet we are losing ships." Zyrak's jaw tightened. That only means they are saving their real weapons for later. The commander ordered the fleet to shift formation. They would surround the planet and strike from every side at once. If the humans had tricks, overwhelming firepower would crush them. As the ships moved into position, the silence returned, heavier than before. No human transmissions, no visible movement on the surface. The planet spun on, beautiful and still. But somewhere down there, something was waiting. And it had already shown the aliens just how easily it could reach them. Zyrak knew the first contact had already been made. It wasn't a greeting, and it wasn't a threat. It was a message. And the message was simple. You are not the hunters here. The Zalith fleet spread out like a silver net around the small blue world. Dozens of warships, carriers, and cruisers moved into their attack positions. Their engines glowing like cold fire in the darkness. Commander Zyrak stood at the center of the bridge, eyes locked on the tactical map. Lines of attack stretched across the holographic display, converging on Earth from every angle. If the humans had more tricks, the commander was determined to crush them with overwhelming force. The crew worked in tense silence. Outside the viewing windows, the curve of Earth glowed in soft blues and whites. It was beautiful. But there was no beauty in Zyrak's mind, now only calculation. The Iron Talon was gone, the scouts were gone, and the drones had been erased, as if they never existed. He would not allow the same fate for the rest of his fleet. Rear formation, hold position near the shadow of the moon. He ordered, front line, prepare to descend into lower orbit. His voice was calm, but inside, a strange weight pressed against him. It was not fear, not yet, but a deep, growing suspicion that the humans were not reacting because they were waiting. The shadow of the moon stretched like a black curtain over part of the fleet. Ships slipped into it, their lights dimming against the cold void. It was here, hidden from direct sunlight, that Zyrak planned to begin the attack. The darkness would mask their movement until it was too late for the humans to respond. Then, without warning, the light around them shifted. The sun's glare faded, not because of the moon but because something else had passed in front of it. The bridge filled with sharp alarms. Object detected. The sensor officer shouted. Zyrak turned toward the main screen, and he saw it. A shadow moved against the stars, massive and silent. At first, it looked like a fragment of space, itself black, jagged, without any clear shape. Then the edges sharpened, forming an outline so large it made even the Zalith battleships look small. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a station. It was a ship. No visible engines, no glowing windows, no sign of heat. Yet it was moving, slowly, deliberately. Straight toward them, Relka stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Sir, what is that? Zyrak didn't answer immediately. He had never seen anything like it. The whole seemed to drink in the light, bending it in ways the eye couldn't follow. Looking at it for too long made the head ache. It felt less like seeing a ship, and more like staring into a deep ocean trench, something your instincts told you not to approach. Send hail, Zyrak ordered. Identify ourselves. The communications officer sent out a dozen frequencies, repeating the same formal command. No response. Instead, the black ship simply kept coming. One of Zyrak's destroyers moved forward, weapons armed, the moment it crossed into the black ship's shadow. The destroyer cracked apart. No fire, no explosion, just a silent, sudden break, as if invisible claws had crushed its hull. Fragments floated away, glittering briefly in the dim light before vanishing into the void. Gasps and curses filled the bridge. Zyrak's jaw tightened. They didn't fire, Relka said slowly. They touched it somehow. From here, the idea was horrifying. Weapons that didn't need projectiles, beams, or missiles, just invisible force. The black ship stopped moving, hanging in the darkness like a predator before a strike. Then, without a sound, A line of faint light appeared along its side. From that line, small shapes detached, dozens of them. They weren't like Zalith fighters. They looked raw, ugly. All sharp edges and armor plating. Each one moved with sharp, erratic bursts of speed. As if piloted by creatures with no fear of dying, the alien sensors tried to lock on. But the human craft moved too strangely. They darted and spun, breaking every predictable flight pattern. One moment, they were far away. The next, they were so close you could see the scratches on their hulls. Open fire. Zirak ordered. The Zalith ships unleashed a storm of plasma bolts and railgun rounds. The void lit up with deadly light. But the human craft twisted through it like predators weaving through a school of prey. One fighter skimmed the side of a Zalith cruiser and released a flash of light. The cruiser's shields went dark instantly, and seconds later, its engines died, leaving it helpless. Another fighter slipped under the belly of a carrier, planted something there, and vanished. The carrier exploded a moment later. Silent flames spilling into space. Zirak's heart pounded. These were not random attacks. Every move was precise. Every strike planned to cripple the fleet's strength, piece by piece. It was as if the humans knew exactly where to hit before the battle even began. The commander forced himself to focus, regroup, pull back toward the main line. He shouted, but even as he gave the order, he saw movement beyond the black ship. More human vessels were emerging from behind Earth's moon. Some were large, some small, all carrying the same brutal, functional design. None of them knew they were scarred, battered, rebuilt again and again. These were not ceremonial fleets. These were warships that had survived countless battles and were still hungry for more. Zirak realized too late that the humans hadn't just placed a trap in Earth's shadows. The shadows themselves were part of the trap. The moon, the dark side of the planet, even the empty space between every inch was watched, calculated, prepared, and now the jaws were closing. The black ship hovered in the void like a nightmare made of steel and shadow. Its presence was heavy, almost alive, pressing on the minds of every alien who looked at it. Commander Zirak's fleet was breaking apart, not from lack of courage, but from something far worse: uncertainty. Every tactic, every plan they had brought to this battle was being torn apart by an enemy that refused to fight the way wars were supposed to be fought. The human fighters swarmed like predators. They didn't follow neat formations or move in perfect lines like Zalith pilots were trained to. Instead, they came from blind angles, slipping between weapons fire, darting behind ships. Each time one appeared on a sensor, it was already too close, and each time one disappeared. A Zalith ship died seconds later. Commander Relka said sharply, "Our targeting systems can't lock onto them. They're predicting us before we fire." Zirak's claws dug into the armrest of his chair. "Then we change our rhythm, randomize firing patterns." But even as he spoke, he saw on the tactical screen that it made no difference. The human craft adapted instantly. One fighter, painted in dark gray with no visible markings, cut through the battle like a blade. Its engines glowed faintly, but it moved without hesitation, as if the pilot knew exactly where every Zalith weapon was pointing. It skimmed the surface of a destroyer, weaving between turrets, and with a short burst of fire, disabled its shield generator before the crew could even shout. A second fighter swooped in and tore through its engines. The destroyer's lights went out and it drifted away, powerless. "This isn't war," Relka muttered under her breath. "It's a hunt." Zirak's eyes narrowed. She was right. The humans weren't fighting to match force with force. They were dismantling the fleet like a predator, breaking the legs of its prey before the kill. Then it happened. The black ship moved for the first time since it appeared. It turned slowly, and from its underside, massive bay doors opened out of the darkness. Something emerged, not more fighters. But long, spear-shaped craft, there were only 6 of them. But each was large enough to be a capital ship in its own right. They were unlike any design the Zalith had, seen thick armor, overlapping plates, edges scorched black from old battles. No glowing emblems, no bright lights, only silent shapes, drifting forward like executioners. "Identify them," Zyrak ordered. The sensor officer hesitated. "Sir, the database doesn't recognize this configuration, these ships. They don't exist in any official records." That was when Zyrak understood this was the human weapon no one spoke of. The reason no survivors ever returned. The reason. The galaxy only had rumors and whispers. The spear ships moved into the heart of the Zalith formation without firing a single shot. Instead, they began broadcasting on open channels. At first, it was only static. Then came voices calm. Confident human voices. Not threats, not commands, just conversation. As if they were discussing the weather. But somehow, every Zalith crew member could hear their own language. The words slid into their minds, perfectly translated, "You should not have come here." One voice said, low and steady. "This is not your hunt," another added. Relka turned to Zyrak, her expression pale and tense. "Their inside hour comes without breaking encryption. That's impossible." Zyrak didn't reply. He was too focused on the slow, deliberate approach of the human spear ships. Then one of them moved faster than the eye could follow. In an instant, it was beside a Zalith battlecruiser. Its hull brushed against the cruiser's shields, then the shields collapsed instantly. No weapon had fired, no explosion had hit. It was as if the human craft had simply switched them off. The spear ship released a short pulse of blue light. Every system on the battlecruiser went dark. In the next moment, another spear ship drifted in and cut the cruiser in half with a single precise shot from a weapon that didn't even glow. There was no wasted movement, no unnecessary fire. Every strike was surgical. Every kill clean. Panic began to spread across the fleet. "Commander, half our forward line is gone." An officer shouted, "Shields are failing across multiple ships." Another cried. Zyrak forced his voice to stay steady. "Fall back toward the outer formation. Keep weapons trained on those 6 ships." But the humans didn't chase blindly. They allowed the Zalith to retreat a little, just enough to make them believe they had space. Then the trap closed again. Fighters blocked escape paths, while the spear ships cut apart stragglers one by one. The black ship itself still had not fired. It simply hovered, silent, watching. As if the battle was already over, and it was only waiting for the cleanup to finish. Zyrak realized the truth. The black ship was not the weapon. The black ship was the hunter's shadow. The real weapons were these silent spear ships, and the human pilots who fought like they were born for nothing else but to kill invaders. And now, for the first time, Zyrak felt something he had not felt in decades. Not anger, not determination, but the cold, sharp edge of fear. The battlefield had become a maze of death. Ships drifted in pieces, shattered by weapons no one had seen fire. Others floated powerless, their lights gone, their crews silent. Commander Zyrak's once proud fleet was now scattered and bleeding into the darkness. But what unsettled him most was not the loss of ships, it was how the humans were fighting. They were not charging in to destroy everything at once. They were hunting, picking off the weak, cornering the strong, and cutting supply lines like a pack of predators isolating prey. Zyrak watched the tactical display whenever a Zalith ship broke formation to escape. 2 human fighters appeared in its path. One would distract it with rapid, erratic movement, forcing the ship to turn. The other would strike from behind, targeting engines or shield generators. It was clean, methodical, and terrifyingly effective. Relka leaned closer to the commander, her voice low. "They know our patterns." "Sir, Every time we change, they change faster. Zirak's eyes narrowed. This is more than experience. This is instinct. On the screen, a Zalith destroyer tried to force its way past a group of human fighters. It poured plasma fire into them, scoring direct hits, but instead of pulling back, the human craft darted closer, weaving between blasts. One clipped the destroyer's hull, leaving behind a strange, glowing device. Seconds later, the destroyer's weapons went silent, its systems frozen. Another fighter swooped in and tore through its bridge with a single shot. The humans didn't waste ammunition. They didn't fire wildly. Every move had purpose. Every strike had meaning. It was the kind of fighting Zirak had only ever seen from apex predators, creatures that killed not for survival, but for dominance. Then the humans began something even more unnerving. They started hurting the remaining Zalith ships, slowly pushing them toward a narrow section of space between Earth and its moon. Zirak recognized the danger. Pull back. Break to open space, he ordered, but it was already too late. Human fighters blocked every escape route. The spear ships glided forward, closing the trap. From the shadows of the moon, more human ships appeared, not large, but fast, bristling with weapons. They were old, their armor scorched and patched, but they moved with the precision of predators who had killed 1,000 times before. They didn't need to be new. Every dent and scar was a sign they had survived battles no other ships could. Relka's voice was tense. "They're not letting us leave, Commander. They want us here." Zirak's claws gripped the armrest. "They think they can cage us. Then we break the cage." He ordered the fleet to push toward the weakest point in the human line. Dozens of Zalith ships surged forward, weapons blazing. For a moment, it looked like they might succeed. Human fighters scattered, clearing the way. But then, the line collapsed by design. The humans weren't retreating. They were inviting the Zalith deeper into the kill zone. The moment the alien ships entered, the space around them erupted in controlled chaos. Fighters struck from blind spots. Spear ships sliced through capital vessels with pinpoint attacks. Every alien ship that tried to turn back found itself blocked by another wall of human craft. The formation broke apart, each Zalith ship now fighting alone. Zirak's ship shuddered as a shockwave rattled its hull. A carrier ahead of them had been split in half by a single blast from one of the spear ships. The pieces drifted apart slowly, as if the void itself was swallowing them. There was no debris cloud, no flaming wreckage, only silence. Then came the sound, a low, steady voice over the open comes, calm but sharp. "You think this is a battle," it said, "but it's already over." Another voice joined in. "You came into our hunting ground, and no one leaves the hunting ground." The crew shifted uncomfortably, some glancing at the commander for reassurance, but Zirak had none to give. He understood now. This was not about defending Earth. This was about teaching every invader that attacking Earth meant extinction. The humans didn't fight for territory. They didn't fight for glory. They fought to erase threats completely, leaving no survivors, no witnesses. It was why no alien fleet had ever returned. It was why the galaxy only had whispers and rumors. Zirak's mind raced. He could order a surrender, but something told him the humans wouldn't accept it. Predators didn't stop because their prey gave up. They stopped when the prey was gone. His only hope was to find a way to break free of the trap. But looking at the tactical map, there was no path out. The humans had closed every door, sealed every window, and now they were moving in for the final strike. The black ship, silent until now, shifted its position slightly. It didn't fire. It didn't speak. It simply moved closer, its shadow swallowing Zirak's ship in darkness. The feeling that gripped the crew was worse than fear. It was the cold certainty that they were already dead. The black ship's shadow loomed over Zirak's flagship, like the weight of an entire ocean pressing down. Its surface seemed endless, drinking in all light. Swallowing the stars behind it, every instinct in Zyrak's body screamed to run. But there was nowhere to run to. The humans had sealed the exits, their fighters circling like wolves, closing in on the last wounded prey. Around him, the bridge was filled with quiet chaos. Officers moved quickly, voices tense but low. No one shouted now. Every crew member knew the truth. The battle was no longer about winning. It was about how long they could survive before the inevitable. Relka stepped up beside him, her eyes fixed on the tactical screen. "Commander, our rear line is gone," she said softly. "The spear ships have cut through everything. We have less than a dozen combat-ready vessels left." Zyrak's gaze stayed locked on the enemy. His voice was calm. "To calm, then we hold. We give them a fight worth remembering." The crew turned to look at him, some with pride, others with the silent dread of soldiers who knew they would die soon. Zyrak stood tall, his armor reflecting the pale light of the bridge. "Signal the fleet," he said. "Form up around my flagship. We fight to the last." The surviving Zalith ships tightened formation, positioning themselves in a defensive circle. Weapons were charged, shields flared to life, and the void lit. With the glow of engines at full power, Zyrak knew the humans would not rush this. Predators never rushed their kill. They would test, probe, and strike where it hurt most. And then they came. Human fighters appeared first, darting in and out, spraying bursts of fire at shield emitters and weapon ports. They didn't stay long enough to be targeted. Every pass they made was meant to weaken, not to destroy, wearing the Zalith down, step by step, behind them. The spear ships moved in slow arcs, each one selecting its target with the precision of a blade, finding the weakest point in armor. One spear ship approached the outer edge of the formation. A Zalith cruiser met it head-on, firing every weapon at once. But the human vessel didn't dodge, it simply took the hits. Its armor glowed briefly from the impact, then cooled as if nothing had happened, with a single burst of energy. The spear ship pierced the cruiser's hull cleanly. The alien ship broke apart in silence, its wreckage drifting away like pieces of a broken statue. Zyrak gritted his teeth. He knew the humans were showing them just enough strength to break morale. But morale was all they had left. Keep firing. Make them bleed for every meter they take. He roared. The humans did take damage, small but noticeable. A fighter exploded in a burst of white light. Two more spun away with smoke trailing from their engines. The crew cheered quietly at each small victory, but for every human craft that fell, 3 Zalith ships died. Then the black ship moved. It had stayed still for most of the battle, watching like a predator letting its pack do the work. Now it slid forward with an unnatural smoothness. Its presence seemed to pull the air from the lungs of every Zalith aboard the flagship. The moment it crossed into weapons range, Zyrak gave the order. "Everything we have, fire." The void lit up as plasma bolts, railgun slugs, and missile trails shot toward the massive vessel for a heartbeat. Zyrak thought they might actually hurt it. But then the black ship's hull shimmered. The weapons fire bent, curved, and scattered harmlessly into the dark. It was as if the laws of physics bent in the humans' favor. From the ship's underside, a deep red glow appeared. A beam of pure energy lanced out, not fast, but slow, deliberate, almost like it was reaching for its target. It touched a Zalith destroyer, and the ship simply dissolved. Metal turned to drifting particles, disappearing into the void. No explosion, no wreckage, nothing left to salvage. Relka's voice was shaking now. They're erasing us." Zyrak said nothing. There was nothing to say. The humans closed in, their formation perfect. The fighters cut apart the last of the outer defenders. The spear ships moved in to disable engines, and the black ship loomed above the flagship like a shadow that had been waiting for centuries. A voice came over the coms, clear, calm, and terrifyingly certain. "This is where it ends." Another voice followed. "Remember this, Zalithur. Kind survives by running from predators, not by walking into their den." Zirek stood straight. "If he was going to die, he would not die crawling. Return fire," he said softly. Until the last weapon is gone, the flagship's guns roared into the darkness. But it was a fight against the tide. One by one, their weapons went silent. One by one, the lights on the bridge dimmed, and finally, the black ship's shadow swallowed them whole. The real reason no one survives the Zalith flagship floated in silence. Its lights were gone, its weapons cold on the bridge. The air felt heavy. The only sounds, the faint hiss of damaged systems trying to hold together. Commander Zirak stood motionless. Staring into the black void beyond the shattered viewport, the human ships circled slowly, patiently, like wolves around a trapped prey. Animal, the black ship was so close now that it filled half the view. No markings, no lights, only the endless, shifting darkness of its hull. It wasn't just a vessel, Zirak realized. It was a message built to last longer than any war. A voice came over the open, comes, calm and steady. "You wanted to know why no one survives attacking Earth," it said. The words came in perfect Zalith speech, without the hesitation of translation. "Watch," the voice continued, from his position on the bridge. Zirak saw the humans move in a way no fleet he had ever faced before. They didn't rush for kills. They didn't fire in rage. Every move was measured, controlled, deliberate. The spear ships didn't destroy ships immediately. They disabled them, stripping away shields, weapons, and engines. Then the fighters swept in, cutting away the outer hull, piece by piece, until the vessels were little more than drifting skeletons in space. One by one, the remaining Zalith ships were silenced. But none exploded. None were left burning or crippled. They were erased, quietly and efficiently. Relka stood beside the commander, her voice barely a whisper. "They aren't fighting a war. They're cleaning a wound." Zirak understood. The humans saw invaders not as enemies to defeat, but as infections to remove. And they made sure nothing remained that could ever return. A second human voice came over the comms, this one lower, colder. "We do not allow threats to heal," it said. "When you come here, you are not an opponent. You are a problem that will never exist again." The words weren't shouted. They weren't angry. They were simply the truth. And that truth sank into the bones of every Zalith who could still hear them. Zirak's gaze swept over the wreckage. Field, or rather the lack of one, ships that should have been debris were gone entirely. Not even fragments floated in the void. It was as if the humans had reached into space and removed them from existence. His mind went back to the missing fleets the galaxy whispered about. Now he understood why no wreckage was ever found. It wasn't luck. It wasn't mystery. It was policy. Earth didn't beat its attackers. Earth erased them. The black ship shifted slightly, its massive bulk blotting out more of the stars. The same voice returned over the comms. "You came here thinking your numbers would protect you," it said. "They never do." A pause. "You thought our silence was weakness. Was the time we gave you to leave." Zirak's claws tightened against the railing. There was no bargaining here. No chance for retreat. Humans did not negotiate with those who crossed into their home with weapons ready. They didn't give mercy because mercy left witnesses. And witnesses brought more enemies. The humans moved with chilling coordination. Disabled ships were taken in tow by the spear ships. Others were drawn toward the black ship itself. What happened? To them inside its shadow, Zirak couldn't see. But he knew he would never see them again. Relka looked at him. Her voice was low, almost resigned. "Commander, we were never supposed to win this." Zirak gave a faint nod. This isn't a battle. Relk hits a warning the galaxy keeps ignoring. The last of the Zalith fleet was gone now. The void around Earth was empty once more, the only sound. On the comms was the faint hum of the human transmissions. Then, slowly, the black ship began to turn away. It didn't flee, it didn't hurry, it simply left. The human fighters and spear ships followed, fading into the distance until only the blue glow of Earth remained. Zyrak stood there for a long time. He knew no one in the Zalith Empire would believe what happened if he told them, but it didn't matter. He would not be telling them. The humans would make sure of that. As the systems of his ship began to fail one by one, Zyrak finally understood the truth. The reason no one survived. Attacking Earth was not because humans were lucky. It was not because they had better technology. It was because they fought with one goal only, to make sure the enemy never came back. And they had succeeded every single time. The darkness grew around him. The bridge lights flickered once, then went out. Commander Zyrak closed his eyes. The last thing he saw was the small blue planet turning peacefully below. As if nothing had happened. As if the hunt had never taken place at all.